guys, this is Dallas here, aka Hulkbusters, who follow me on Twitch and YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about an exciting topic for all of us, and that is League of Legends versus Dota, the pros and cons of each, and also which we think, in our opinion, is a better game. Obviously, there's three of us, so our opinions differ quite dramatically, but it's a really fun topic, and a lot of people are interested in these two MOBAs. They're probably the two most popular MOBAs out there on the market, so that's what we're going to deep dive into today, guys. So we'll let Carter take it away first.
Yeah, so I've been playing League since 2018. I think that was either season 8 or season 9. I played a little bit. Mostly just with my friends and stuff. I never really took rank too seriously. I just kind of played the position of AD carry. I just played my boy Lucian and just had some fun with my friends. I think I was like bronze 3 or something was the best rank I got to back in those days, but it wasn't until recently in 2019 and during season 10 when I started actually playing the game seriously and trying to rank up, climb the ladder. And my peak in season 10 was gold 4, 90 LP. So, nothing too crazy, but I think that's pretty good for my first ever season. And yeah, I've just been really enjoying League of Legends. I think it's a really fun game, and it's just like it's something that I've surprisingly never been able to get tired of. Most games you kind of get burnt out of them after a while, but I just don't find that with League of Legends. I think every game is different, and every game you go a different build path, and I just think it has a lot of replayability.
Yeah, I definitely have played my fair share of League. I initially started with Dota 1, which was a Warcraft 3 mod that IceFrog had made. It was Dota 1. It was the first MOBA. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was very rudimentary. It was not very polished. There would be several different shops for different items to make recipes and stuff, and it was very complex. But that's the thing that I fell in love with Dota right away. Uh, just the complexity of the game. And then later, when League of Legends was released, it felt like for the first time there was an actual game on the table now that was like readily available. The queue was good. You could just press, play and go instead of like essentially having to look for custom games in a Warcraft 3 custom games menu and then hope for that there's Dota in there and then waiting for people to load it. It was kind of a nightmare in that sense. But I played League for a very long time. I played basically since its release. And then I played definitely before there was an ELO ranking and stuff like that. I think at some point they released the ranking system. I didn't get too deep into that. But then when Dota 2 was released, that's when I basically put League of Legends on the shelf. I knew I was always wanting to come back to Dota 1, but when Valve released Dota 2, I was very excited. I think that both games offer their pros and cons, and I think that's what we're going to get into today. I would argue that this is probably gaming's biggest pissing match. You have people in each camp who is dedicated to each side. You have League of Legends fans who swear that it's great. You have Dota 2 fans that swear it's great too. So I think that today it's going to be really nice to get a good feel for like kind of how we think about both games in general. I know Dallas, he's definitely played more League than Dota. He recently played a little bit of Dota. I know Carter has played a massive amount of League and a little bit of Dota, whereas I feel like I transcend both bridges where I played a lot of Dota 1, I played a lot of League, and then upon its release, I played a lot of Dota 2.
The thing is, for me, I like both games graphics wise. They're both nice. They both look good on the screen, especially when you have it at max frame rates on your computer, high quality. It looks good. Both of them look good. They feel good to play. For me, I've watched probably an even amount of Dota and League matches just because my brother Katlin and his girlfriend are always playing Dota when I'm over there, and they're kicking ass together, and they're on Discord with their other friends that play Dota as well. And then Carter, on the other hand, plays a lot of League, and I've dabbled in both. Obviously League I played when it was first released with Katlin back in the day. I was never really that great at either of them, and especially League, obviously, because I do have quite a bit of matches in League. But I do enjoy both games. They're both fun to play. Obviously, learning curve wise, Dota 2 is definitely much more difficult, especially for a beginner player like myself. But I've definitely have experience with both games, and I think as far as MOBAs go, I don't know if any other real MOBAs rival either of these two games. Like, and especially with their fans, like they have diehard fans, both of them, and I think that's the thing that keeps both these games really going.
I think
Yeah,
that the other MOBA games that are even on the forefront are basically Smite, which is a very different MOBA. It's not a top-down look; it's a kind of first-person MOBA, and then also you have Heroes of New Earth or Han. So I think it's hard to even equate both of those two. I know obviously they have their communities and stuff, but when it comes to the big boys, it comes to the top of the mountain. You got Dota and you got League going at it, and I'd say arguably both camps are pretty toxic towards each other and toxic within their own community. So it's really good to see that you're getting the mudslinging on both fronts at each other and at the opponent. So
yeah, I don't really think there's anything that has ever even come close to rivaling those two games. And yeah, but again, I agree with Dallas's point where League of Legends is definitely the more beginner friendly game in my opinion. I think it's a lot more user friendly, and even just recently in season 11, they're trying to make the items a lot easier um, by getting rid of some of the active abilities, so you don't have to press more buttons. I think that's really a step in the right direction for that game. And I've played a little bit of Dota. I've played probably 3 or 4 games total, so I can't really say too much about that. But I do think even having a lot of experience in League, it's still very difficult to get the hang of Dota 2. You know, the whole courier system and having to control multiple units is definitely something I've never really had to do in a video game before. So just in that front, I think League of Legends definitely has the advantage of just being more user friendly and more forgiving to beginners.
I think a lot of people might consider that like a negative towards Dota, but I celebrate the fact that its complexity really kind of like has a pseudo gatekeeping effect. People who want to get into Dota, you basically have to learn the game and get good at the game. You got to really put a lot of dedication. I think that Dota 2 definitely rewards someone who's willing to put the time and effort in, and I really like that about the game. I also like there are aspects of League that I really like. I do agree. I think that League is a lot more simplistic. I think with this new update where they essentially revamped all the items and stuff and made things simplistic, that's good for people trying to get into the scene. But as far as having complexity and lots of items that drastically affect gameplay, I think Dota 2's got that unlocked. I think that if we had more buttons to press is the way to go. I do understand that at the start it's kind of difficult to micromanage couriers and control the units and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, I have to stand solid with my opinion that I think that that's what makes the game so great. I feel like it really does reward the player for putting the time in. So
Yeah, I can definitely see the appeal of all the micro and the micromanagement of other units, but I think one of the shining points of League is you can really just master your character's abilities and then really focus on the macro of the game, making sure you're farming, you're going in on team fights that you can win and things like that. I think it's a lot better to just kind of be on autopilot in a way where you don't really have to focus on your actual character. You can kind of just focus on the map and what your team's doing and getting these objectives and pushing in towers. And I think that is definitely easier for a small brain person such as myself. I know Dota is probably definitely for the galaxy brain individuals, but yeah, I really like the simplicity of League of Legends. But there is a couple things I can appreciate about Dota in the few matches I have played. I think just the fact that you can kind of go through trees and hide in trees is really an interesting system. And also, one thing I want to talk about is just the abilities. I feel I haven't really played that many heroes in Dota 2, but I have plenty of champions in League of Legends, and just in the few characters I have played, I feel as though the abilities in League of Legends just feel better to use. I know I played a little bit of Mars, and I'm gonna compare him to Pantheon in League of Legends. So Mars has a ability similar to Pantheon's Q in League of Legends, where they throw a spear basically, right? And the way Dota does it is you hover your mouse and then you click, and then you press Q and then click to throw the spear. Whereas in League, you hold Q and then you aim and then you let go. And I just feel like that just feels a little bit smoother. It just feels a little bit better to me. But then again, I also don't have that much experience in Dota, so I don't know. You might get used to some of those abilities, and I don't know. Maybe other champions also feel, or heroes, sorry, feel a lot better to play.
I think there's actually a setting where you can change it to the release queue kind of thing like that.
Okay.
But I think that that's actually a really good point. The kind of what I've discovered between the two games is I feel like League is very combat centric. You start the game, you're kind of able to spam a lot of your spells. You know, you can probably throw out maybe 5 or 6 or even more than that with spells at the start. You can really poke with the abilities that you have. Where in Dota, some heroes, a lot of the strength heroes especially, you throw maybe 1 or 2 spells out, you're tapped. So it's a very patient game, where I feel like League is very combat centric and reflex centric. But I feel like Dota does, how you said before, it does feel like that galaxy brain kind of approach, where like you're manipulating creep and you're stacking creep and you're trying to get bounty runes and you're trying to make mind games with illusion runes. And there's a lot of micro opposed to the macro consideration, I feel like, in Dota. And I find that's really fun. The one thing I will say right out of the gate, I feel like the skill difference between someone just jumping in and someone who is obviously like a veteran like me, who has probably over 9,000 games played, it's a wash. Like I could probably take on 3 people at once if it's 3 people who it's their third or fourth game. Where I feel like in League, it really does allow someone who's new to kind of learn the concepts really early, and it's really well conveyed. Where I would say Dota 2's conveyance is like probably one of the worst forms of conveyance I've ever seen. Even their tutorial, I know at one point they had a tutorial that featured a character named Sniper, where you're basically going through a map and learning the game. It actually doesn't show you go through the actual Dota game. It's like a little mini game where you actually don't learn anything about the game. So its conveyance is very poor. But I mean, like I say, I as much as I love Dota, and I do have some appreciation for League, like I do actually like the game. I can have some fun with it. It feels a little bit more like you can kick your feet up and play a little bit more. It's not so try hard, even though I'm sure there are people in the community that take it to that level. But I really like to hear the opinions from people who just recently started playing Dota. I always love to hear like what new people think of the game when they first get into it.
For me, the thing is with Dota, there's things that I think are really cool. Don't get me wrong. There's things that are cool. The fact that you can creep block, I thought was really, really sweet. The fact that you could stop your creep from moving up the map and like line them up, so all of a sudden the enemy's pushed on your tower, I think that's really cool. I think that's original. Like, I mean, obviously, like that's sweet. Like you can't do that in League, so you're always like right in the middle. You can't auto attack in either game because basically you're pushing the tower either way. But another thing, and this is more of a frustrating thing to me, and I think a thing for new players that would really, really struggle, is the fact with denying kills and denying towers. Like that to me, like when we were playing, me and Kat yesterday were playing some solo matches. And there was a time literally where he literally was killing every single enemy, getting the last hit on them. But also, not only was he getting the last hit on all of my creatures, he was also denying me. So I literally didn't get any gold. I was sitting at like level 1 while he was at level 4. It's just like the skill difference to me is the one thing that bothers me, because it's like it's not really user friendly for beginners, right? And don't get me wrong, yeah, if you didn't have a job and you, like, you know what I mean, you had all day to play and learn a game, yes, it would be perfect. But for somebody who like, especially like up here where we live, like there's some jobs where you're working 12 hours a day. So I mean, if you're working 12 hours a day and you're trying to learn Dota 2, like it's gonna take you probably 3 freaking years to get any decently good at it if you only had like one game a day to play. Another thing was queue time. I noticed that, and obviously there we were all different levels. Like me and Carter's accounts are brand new. Cat's account obviously is has been out for a long time, and he's like mid-tier on it. So was the other guy, Sean, that we were playing with. So obviously that was one of the reasons that the queue was taking so long. But it was like 38 minutes for one match, whereas like in League, like me, Katlin Carter, we jump in. All of our characters are different. We're all in different ranks, blah blah blah, different levels. But it's still like a minute and a half. Boom, we're in the match. So like I respect that with Dota. Like I mean, if I played it for as long as Catlin did, I think I would have much more appreciation for it. But with the schedule and how busy life can get, and sometimes for a lot of people in this world, I feel like it's really hindering the amount of players that will ever really pick it up and play it a lot because like man, if Catlin wouldn't literally have been basically carrying me and showing me exactly what to do, I can't imagine a brand new person without somebody else like my brother that's played it, like by themselves out there with this toxic ass community and everyone yelling and freaking out at them. And there's like voice chat so you can hear people shitting on you. Like, man, it was embarrassing. Like I felt like the biggest nub in the world. And I mean, like, there's a lot of people out there that are way worse at video games than me. And plus they didn't have a guy that was literally right there holding their hand the whole time. So I just feel bad for like brand new players that are just trying to get into it without a leader basically, or a sensei, so to speak, right?
I think that it is very unforgiving for new players. That's something that like I know that we've kind of touched on, but just the amount of mechanics that are behind this game. I would say like, I'm a sucker for games that like have a lot of complexity. When I saw that Path of Exile passive tree, my eyes lit up. I couldn't wait to make builds and stuff like that. Dota 1 was even more complex than Dota 2. And when I first played Dota 1, I didn't even know what was going on. I basically just played Phantom Lancer because he had the Kimari from Final Fantasy skin superimposed into the game. I just thought that was so cool how they did that. And I would just jungle all game and just kill NPCs, and people would be like typing, freaking out, like, "Oh, what are you doing, Phantom Lancer? You're ruining this game." And I'd be like, "Yep, killing monsters." But the one thing that I will say is that that's not always a bad thing, and I think that for new people, for sure, it is going to be something that's a hurdle to climb. And again, like how Dallas said, people's lives are busy, and people don't have enough time in the day to commit to a video game, and that makes a lot of sense. So I think with the League, there are circumstances where it can actually be a lot more fun. Definitely the one thing I will say, and I've said it before, is it does feel very combat centric. So the team fights feel really fun, and they try to implement a lot of interesting ideas. I mean, I've seen League change from when I first started playing till when it to where it is today, like after playing a match like 2 nights ago. Like it is a very different game. And I would say the same thing with Dota. When Dota 2 first came out, it is drastically different than what it looks like now. So I think that the one thing that I found even difficult as a veteran player is a huge patch would come out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, I got to relearn all this stuff now. Oh, they added new items. Like it's kind of like daunting for a veteran player who's like, I just got used to the way things were, and now they changed it. And like a lot of the changes were so minor, but like they were kind of frustrating. I feel like Dota's direction as far as like what they're going for has gone more and more downhill, in my opinion. I wouldn't say maybe in the esports scene or the competitive scene, but as the overall game, I feel like Dota 2, the choices that they made, with implementing outposts and some of the items, I thought it was a really fresh idea that the jungle neutrals could drop items. I always thought that was very reminiscent of Warcraft 3 when you're trying to creep. That always felt really fun. But I'd say overall, Dota 2 feels like they make a lot of very strange choices with a lot of their seasonal stuff. People have obviously been begging for the Greveling to come back, which was a Christmas special, essentially. And then with the candies, they kind of try to bring the candies back with Halloween last year, but it wasn't as fun as the first time. I feel like, especially in its infancy, Dota 2 just felt a lot more fun. I really don't like the direction that they're going with a lot of just the changes. I mean, obviously, I can't sit here and talk about all the changes since its release. It would be its own episode just on patches alone. Just sometimes how they'll rework heroes just out of the blue, and then the heroes completely change. Either he gets completely lowered in the meta or raised on a pedestal in the meta. But I feel with League, the changes that have taken place over the years have been somewhat subtle. Obviously, like there's a big window of when I played and when I didn't, but I feel that they do it with. It seems like there's a lot of good intention with their changes. They do a lot of kind of weird things that I like after taking a huge break and then coming back. It's like, oh, what's this little crab in the river? You kill him, he turns into a ward. It seems like, or like there's this little plant that when you break it open, there's little jellies inside of it, and it's like, oh, this is recovering mana HP. That's interesting. Like things that don't really seem to blow the lid off of how the game works and functions. You know, they still have Baron, they still have Dragon. Now it does some kind of ocean buff or whatever. But again, like I say, like they're I feel like if you play the game constantly, League is a lot easier to keep up with. I know that that's something that me and my girlfriend both have struggled with as veteran players and people that know the game. It's like they'll make these changes that make absolutely no sense, and then sometimes they even revert the changes when they realize that they don't like it. So I feel like in the realm of just simplicity, League wins on that one, and it's definitely more user friendly. Dota 2, I feel like, I mean, obviously Carter was saying before how there's games like League doesn't seem to burn out at all. Dota 2 can burn you out. It can definitely burn you out.
Yeah, so a couple things. I know Dallas mentioned that wave management is something that's really huge in Dota, and as well that is really big in League. I know once you get into the higher ranks, wave management becomes one of the essential things you have to know how to do. You know, freezing waves, hard shoving waves is really important for denying the enemy XP and gold and things like that. Another thing that Dallas mentioned is that Dota definitely takes a little bit longer. Even the games themselves last longer than league matches. You know, the typical league match is probably, I'd say, 25 to 45 minutes long, whereas I think Dota is probably a little bit longer than that. I know the matches can even get up to an hour and 20 minutes, things like that. And another thing is Kat mentioned the meta shift, and I think he was definitely pretty spot on about League making really subtle changes to the meta, and I think that's something I really appreciate about the game. I know I've only played for 2 seasons. I've only played for season 10 and season 11, and those were when I was really paying attention to the game and the meta itself. So when they introduced the new items, it was definitely something I wasn't really looking forward to because, uh, well, mainly because I was just learning a new champion called Akali, and she had this item called Hex Tech Gunblade, which I really enjoyed. And they were getting rid of that item and a bunch of other items that I liked, such as uh Frostfire Gauntlet, I think it was what it was called, or something like that, where it would just CC slow your enemies. And as well, Hextech Gunblade did that as well. It slowed and did damage to your enemies. And I wasn't looking forward to the change, but now that I've actually played a lot of games in the preseason and season 11, I'm actually quite welcomed to the new items. I think they did a really good job with a lot of them. I think items like Everfrost, Riftmaker, Stride Breaker are some of the items that really made me want to play champions that I forgot about in the last season. For example, Set is my main at the moment. There's this new item called Stride Breaker for him, where it has an active on it that you do a little dash and you slow your enemy opponents, which allows you to go in and get on top of your opponents easily if you're playing a bruiser character. And I don't know, I just think now that I've used a lot of the new items, I'd say I definitely prefer them to the old items now. So I still think the game in itself is kind of in an unbalanced state. I think they still haven't really fixed a lot of the characters that are really broken right now. And I'm sure in Dota you have those same issues where they release a new ability or they buff a character or they release a new item that really makes a certain character just way more overpowered than they should be. And there's also a lot of characters that are underpowered due to nerfs. Akali was my main during preseason, and she's been just absolutely gutted. I think she's borderline unplayable now. But Riot loves money, so hopefully once that new skin comes out for Akali, they'll buff her back up to S tier again.
I
I
just think
think
for me, it's like the fact is both games are fun and they both have their own fan bases. But I think like the separation is obviously, like I said, the skill level. Like Dota is, it's like a lot of micro, like moving individual items, moving your courier, getting back onto your champion, like secret shops, like Catlin said, bounties, denying creep, like the tower distance that they can hit you from, like the amount of damage the towers do. Like I think Dota is very interesting in that sense. But like I said again, and I don't hate to beat the dead horse, but I just couldn't see how a new player, unless they didn't have a job or unless they were some like Amazon seller who doesn't have to actually work and just makes money automatically. Like for someone who works a 9 to 5 job, I could just see Dota being a really real big struggle to get into. Whereas League, I don't want to say they're dumbing down the game, but really they are making it with every season more user friendly. Like even for me, like jumping back into League. Um, you don't really have to worry, especially when you're not talking about ranked matches. When you're talking about just like your basic play matches, your unranked matches, it's really easy for a player to pick up and put down. Also, characters that normally perform in certain roles like ADC or support, jungle, like you can kind of, when you're playing just your basic matches, especially with newer accounts in League, you can basically put your guy wherever you want. And if you're decent at the game and you know how to manage your character, you could pretty much play wherever you want in the game. Obviously ranked is much different, and I guarantee that's for Dota and League. But like just playability, it's just easy to jump in. Like I'd love to just try Master Yi as a top, or try Garen as an ADC. You know what I mean? Like Catlin plays Brand. He's played Brand probably every position, like top, bottom, ADC, like support, like everywhere, right, Cat? Like you can kind of just do your own thing. And you've never been a meta guy, Cat. Whereas Carter is definitely like looks at the meta, looks at his runes, like always wants to make it perfect. But whereas you can literally just do whatever you want with the items just by looking at them and still go like 12-1. Like it's pretty
Well,
crazy.
the thing that I find like interesting about that is just the fact that how Carter said before, like the itemization in the games are different. But I do think that the one big difference between Dota and League is League does feel very, very hardline in what works and what doesn't. So you will typically, when you see a hero picked, you know exactly where he's going. Is he going to the jungle? Is he going top? Whereas Dota has been very fun to see, especially how professionals have been rewriting the book on some of this stuff. One that comes to mind is, Faceless Void used to be considered a safe lane carry that you park in the safe lane and then you just get a lot of money. But then in professional scenes, you'd see him solo in this off lane where it's 2 versus 1, and he's very able to deal with that very effectively, because when people try to pounce on him and kill him, he can just jump back in time and fully heal and fully mana. So he's very difficult to kill in those scenarios. So I like how Dota 2 feels like you can really kind of, it's more of a freestyle, especially if you have a lot of knowledge of the game. And there's a lot of really silly freestyling. For example, you see like, a support like Dazzle, who builds a Desolator and goes carry, and all of a sudden there's a healer who's running up to you, 3-shotting you. It's kind of funny to see that it is a lot. There's a lot more freedom in how you approach the game in Dota 2. I feel in League it's very hardline. You want the masteries to be, or sorry, the runes, or I believe the masteries or runes. You want them set up in a very precise way. The itemization, you want to get certain items every single time you play that hero, which for me, I prefer the more freestyle approach. I've never been a big meta guy. I understand why the meta is important, why the meta is like the driving factor to a lot of how these heroes and matches go. But my whole thing is I really like making decisions. I really like making my own decisions, and I like decisions that feel like I was able to come up with a very cool idea. I know that, my play with when I would play Brand in League is I loved movement speed. I liked being able to run around them and do pillar of fire and that sort of thing, and then run off to the next lane. And I would argue that that's actually not a good strategy. I think a lot of the strategy with Brand is to, play him as a support or a mid and just, poke when you can, that sort of thing. But I really liked in League, there's a lot of avenues for movement speed. And I'm a massive fan in video games, especially when it gives you the choice to move fast. I want to move fast. And I like that with League. It felt really nice to be able to move very quickly. An item that's very underused, and I think people consider kind of a troll item in League, is the boots of mobility, but I absolutely love them. And if I'm not building those, I'm building the boots of swiftness. So those are two items that you don't typically see on Brand. But I used to do it, and I used to do it well. With Dota 2, I feel like the items kind of feel more impactful to me. In League, it seemed like just a stat game. Like, you have items like Phantom Dancer and stuff like that, where it's like attack speed, attack damage, stuff like that, some crit. But in Dota, you don't start with Flash. You have to buy an item that costs 2,500 gold, which is actually like quite a bit of gold for a support, to even just have a no stat item that gives you Flash, Blink Dagger. So, and there's a lot of really interesting game changing items as well in Dota. Like, you'll have, Black King Bar, which essentially makes you immune to all spells for a duration of its buff period, and that can really change a team fight. But there's also really unique and fun items in League as well, like that Hourglass that makes you essentially impervious to damage or effects for the duration that it's up. So I think that what each game does, I think they do it very effectively. But they're different games, and I think that's something that we really need to make the distinction and also have some appreciation for. I think it's there's no harm in noticing that it's like, yes, they're both MOBAs. Yes, they're the biggest boy MOBAs on the face of the planet. And it's true that both communities don't really see eye to eye that often. But again, they are different games. And I think that they offer a lot of pros to a lot of people, and I think more so a lot of cons as well for some people as well.
My biggest thing is that for League and honestly, like I feel like I've been kind of not necessarily bashing Dota, but just like saying their glaring problems that it has, and like obviously that being user friendly. But one thing that really bothers me with League, and I know what bothers both you boys as well, is the fact that they took out 3v3, and that was our jam. Just three brothers kicking ass and chewing bubblegum, man. Like literally in that. Do they still even have that twisted tree line map, Carter? No, they don't. They took
I
it
don't
right
think
out.
so. That was such a confusing change. I've never seen League make such a drastic change like that. Like how me and Carter said before, it's always been very subtle changes. But once they removed Twisted Tree Line, I know for me that was basically me packing my bags. I felt so offended that they would get rid of I don't even know if you guys remember a setting or a map called Domination, but I remember that came out and it basically was dead on impact. People didn't like it. The one thing you get with League is they're trying these different ones like ARAM and stuff like that. I feel like just to get rid of Twisted Tree Line was a massive slap to the face, especially who's someone who likes to play threes. I love the way the map worked. I like the way how you had to take those two little objectives over near the middle of the map. And just the idea that you're running now a one at the top and two people at the bottom. There's less confusion. There's more communication. And I feel like it was a lot more fun. I could say that maybe it might not have been so balanced just because if you have three characters that are just so good together, we would feel it. We would know when the other team was, they had their shit on lock. But it was a very confusing thing. I still don't understand why they did that. And I feel like that actually single move that they made by removing Twisted Tree Line was definitely one of the driving factors to me to just completely leave the game for sure. I really like the 3v3 mechanic. They don't have anything like that in Dota. And I think that it's really important to make that distinction that League has always tried to throw stuff against the wall and see what will stick as far as different map settings. Dota's never had a different map. It's always been the same map. And I'm as far as at the time, I know that the map has changed and the way the jungles worked and different things like that. But when Dota 2 has a map that's live, you're just getting that map. There's no choice. You're playing on the same map every game that you play. One thing that I really had to give an A+ to League for is that they were giving you those options for the maps. But now all the other maps other than Summoner's Rift just feel like mini games and they don't feel fun. I just feel like they're a waste of time. I think Twisted Treeline being deleted was a massive oversight.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Twisted Treeline was definitely something I personally really enjoyed playing with you guys. And I think just the fact that they got rid of that was really just out of the blue. And I mean, there was a lot of people who were dedicated fans of Twisted Treeline. There was people who would only play Twisted Treeline. And I don't know, hopefully hopefully in the future they'll realize their mistake and bring it back. But I know they've definitely been trying to create a lot of different mini games, such as TFT, which I actually kind of enjoy. It's kind of like a auto battle chess kind of thing. I've played quite a bit of that, and I definitely do enjoy that. But yeah, I don't know. Twisted Treeline, them getting rid of that was just kind of sudden, and I
I
don't really
think
see the reason behind
I
it.
think that Dota 2, if I'm not mistaken, started that auto chess craze. I've
Mhm.
never understood it. I'm not really a big fan of auto chess. It just didn't seem like it was very fun to me. I can see the appeal why people might like it, but it definitely wasn't for me. But one thing I definitely do want to talk about, as far as the Dota versus League, is I'd like to talk a lot about the champions and a lot about the art direction. I think that it's really important to make the distinction between those two as well. I feel like with Dota, the characters seem a lot more maybe grounded in mythology and that sort of thing. Like you can almost kind of tell where the inspiration came for a lot of these characters. Whereas League, it feels like they're all super original concepts. But one thing I will say about League is it does feel very edgelordy. Every character that comes out is some buff guy with a 6-pack and he's got a scythe and he's or has a bow and like they're androgynous. Like I don't know. I always felt like League was very it just felt like very edgelordy when the new characters came out. But like, you have characters that come out in Dota, which are kind of the opposite of edgelord. In fact, they've released some of their newer characters they've released have been just like, I can't believe someone greenlit this. Like you have people like Cookie Grandma, Snapfire, or you have Pangolier, who's basically Italian. I don't know what they are thinking with some of their creative choices over at Dota as far as the characters. I know the last couple new characters that released to the game were actually kind of interesting and cool looking. I'd say Grimstroke and Mars definitely have like a cool look to them, even though Mars did feel very Disney's Hercules in his look. He just kind of looked like one of the Titans almost. So I thought that
A
was
little sprinkle of Ganondorf in there.
yeah, a little Ganondorf on the smile for sure. But one thing I will say is I feel like and the graphics, the way they look, the art style is very different. I feel like not that Dota 2 is very dark and gritty, but compared to League's whimsical, colorful rainbow splash in your face kind of appeal, is it does feel very grounded and very gritty. League, the one thing I will say, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who like this sort of stuff, but I don't. I don't like humor based skins. I think that like skins like Broloff, where he's got a bunch of like beer containers and stuff, or like we're all going for a pool party and everyone's holding a surfboard. I don't know. I think that stuff's kind of silly. I would say the cosmetics in Dota are so cool looking. I would say that they're way cooler looking. It's not just a skin you can mix and match because most of the items are individual pieces, like a helmet or a sword or a chest piece. It really gives you that ability to mix and match how you want your character to look, opposed to with League, if you have a skin that the same person has, you just look the same. That's all it is. There's no difference there. So, but also that just reminds me of something that I realize is actually surprisingly a massive difference between Dota 2 and League. Is in League, you can play against the same hero in the same match. Like, for example, you could have a Sin.
I'm just gonna correct you there. Actually, that's only in blind pick, but in normal draft and ranked draft, you cannot play the same
Oh, okay.
champions.
Okay. Because I know when I played, you could just pick the other hero. Like there was literally, you could potentially run up against a 5v5 that was the exact same lineup. And at that point, it kind of begs the question, it's just who played it better, right? Whereas in Dota 2, you've never been able to pick characters that the other team has picked. And they also have, I feel like, a more at one time, I would say their banning process was a lot better. The banning process now in Dota 2 is absolutely ridiculous. I think that they should go back to the old way. Right now, the way it seems like it works is you ban a character and 50% of the time it goes through, and other times it doesn't. Like sometimes you'll ban a character and it just won't get banned. And then the team will pick that character and then they proceed to dumpster you. Whereas I feel like in League, its banning phase is a lot more concise. It conveys it very well. It's red. The screen kind of goes red when you're doing the banning phase, and then it shows it chop, chop, chop exactly who has been banned on your team and on their team as well. So I do think that, League and Dota have a lot of differences. Sometimes I think the differences are negligible. Sometimes I think the differences are quite important.
No, that's definitely something I'd agree with you is a point for Dota. It's definitely just the skins and the fact that you can customize individual pieces. And also, I just think the graphical style in Dota 2 is definitely a lot better than League of Legends. I think League of Legends kind of is going for more of a cartoony kind of look, whereas Dota is a lot more 3D, just better graphics in general. And I think I definitely agree that some of the skins in Dota are a lot cooler. I know I used to play CS:GO, and that was one of my favorite things is just opening cases and collecting individual skins. They have gloves, knives, different gun skins, and things like that. I really liked the customization in that game. And since Dota is also a Valve game, I assume that it's probably very similar to that. And I think that if there was one thing that would get me interested in Dota, it would definitely be the customization options. And I think they definitely excel in that department. But I do also think there's a lot of cool skins in League. I know you mentioned the humorous skins. I actually really enjoy some of the humorous skins. Uh, for example, BMO, fucking Timo, but he's just a bee. Just skins like Pantheon Baker Pantheon, where he's just or pizza delivery Siver, where she's just holding a big pizza. I think it's silly and fun, but
I get it for sure, and the thing is too is that like I'm not going to sit here and say that all of League skins are just these silly skins. They have a lot of really cool skins as well. I know like I used to play a lot of Singed. I like that Singe that kind of makes him look like Bane. He feels like Bane because he's always juicing with that chemical. I really liked how they incorporated that. And I think that a lot of their theming is really cool. Like they'll have a lot of skins that are themed around like hex tech, the idea of like magic and technology together. It's really kind of fun to see that sort of stuff. Something that I personally, I'm a big metal head. I love metal music in general. So seeing the Pentakill theme was kind of cool for a lot of it, but it was kind of hokey too. Seeing these characters now with like massive guitars instead of axes and stuff, which I thought, was kind of hit the nail on the head with some of it. But again, like I say, I feel like just the cosmetics in Dota 2, that was a thing that really kept me coming back, as well as just being able to flaunt these gorgeous skins or items that you won or that you were able to get in a seasonal event that you can't get anymore. The prestige of having that item and that flex factor was really fun for me. Also, the one thing I'm not sure if obviously if someone has never played Dota 2, they don't even understand how expensive some of these items are. There are items in the game that are multiple thousands of dollars. Like I know that there's a baby Roshan courier that has a gingerbread effect, or a gold effect, and other different effects. Like these can be up to $2,000 to $3,000 couriers, and these are just simply not even your hero. This is something that brings you your supplies. So just the raw amount of financial sink. I would hate to even be able to look at my account and see how much I've spent on cosmetics, because that wouldn't be pretty.
That's one thing I've never had to worry about. Don't get me wrong, League and Dota, both, like I've seen some of Catlin's skins that are, don't get me wrong, they're pretty sweet. And Carter has some pretty cool skins as well. Both of you have skins in League. But I've never really cared that much about cosmetic wise. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like I think there's a couple skins that are like amazing that I almost would buy if I played a little bit more. But for me, it's never been about the skins. The play style of both games is what gets me. The one thing with Dota that really bugs me was like tri-laning. Like it kills me, like, because we played a game yesterday in Dota and we were getting pretty much stomped by one person, and there was three of us. And don't get me wrong, me and Carter are new, but Catlin's also a veteran player, so you'd think that no matter what, that wouldn't happen. Like in League, if you had one character on the bottom as an ADC, and you had an ADC support, and then the jungle came in, there is no absolute way that one player, no matter how good they are, especially at the beginning of the game, like that, would be able to just destroy all three characters. You know what I mean? Whereas, yeah, I think the guy was level 10 or something by the time I was level 3, and Catlin was like 5, Carter was 4, like, and he was just like dominating. I ended up having to leave just to go jungle or something. It was just, yeah, the difficulty of it was pretty crazy. It's just weird seeing a tri lane. I don't know if League's done that ever.
Yeah, no, that's another thing I thought was kind of interesting in Dota is that jungling has kind of become something of the past, like in a way, and it's more 2v2 side lanes, which once you're starting out in League, that's definitely kind of the same thing where people will put two players in the side lanes, and the jungle will just be kind of free reign for whoever wants to. But as you start ranking up, getting higher level, people start jungling, and I think it's really interesting that Dota has kind of, I don't know, like it seems like jungling isn't nearly as powerful.
It's really
Whereas in League of Legends, a jungler can really turn the tides of the game, and jungling is arguably the most important position in the game.
it's very unfortunate because Dota and it's like Dota 2 rather in its early stages is like jungle was a role, and you would see a lot of games where Lifestealer or Axe would go jungle, and this is a point in the game where the jungle had somewhat comparable experience angled into the lane. Now the role of jungle is it's kind of sad actually, especially since they've introduced like neutral item drops, which would have been a lot of fun in the jungle meta to have these items drop, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden I got this free item that just makes me more powerful than I would have been normally. But the current meta for the jungle is essentially if you are a safe lane carry and you get bodied, you have to go to the jungle with your tail between your legs to get less XP and less gold because you just couldn't handle the lane. I think that the jungle being phased out in Dota 2 is very unfortunate. There's a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of choices over the years. I think Dota has made a lot of bad choices. But they have you have to remember that they're taking on a massive, selection of ideas that encapsulate a lot of the heroes. For example, a new recent change that they implemented was a thing called Ognem shards, and every single hero in the game has Ognem shards. And I mean, there's so many heroes in Dota 2. Every shard, some of the shards are like you build them every game, they're just so good, and some of them are just okay. That's kind of an interesting idea. Like now, Sniper has a concussive grenade, but also not that recently, but a lot of the heroes all got their Ognem Scepter. Back in the day, you only got Ogs for some heroes, and it mostly just affected their ult, the way their ult worked. Now every single hero in the game has an Ognem Scepter, and sometimes it doesn't even affect their ult. Sometimes it affects their Q. Sometimes it affects like the way their other abilities work. So it's a massive lot of work that they're having to do. I think that with the soundtracks and the announcers and the couriers and the voice lines and all that sort of stuff, like it's a massive overtaking. And I think Dota 2 definitely can shine in that regard. But I feel like they have a lot of wasted effort on a lot of stuff. They do this thing where every season they try to bring some kind of mini game where it's essentially just you attack waves and waves of monsters, and it's boring. They did this thing called Ognem's Labyrinth, and you had to essentially go through these labyrinths and try to compete. And I just feel like it's a lot of fluff that the game doesn't need. Any I think diehard Dota 2 fan will tell you, like, we want more heroes, we want more interesting map changes that aren't just terrible. I'm talking about, you're talking to someone who used to play at the start of Dota 2, where there weren't bounty runes. You were contesting for the power runes at the start, and there's a lot of really interesting fights at the start of the game because you really want that competitive edge. Now it's basically the meta is just get your own bounties. You get 2 maybe, and then you just go back to lane. Like there's not a lot of really interesting play at the start of the game for sure. Whereas in League, I think that there's a lot of really cool potential for some of the stuff. Like you have 5 people hiding in a bush, and all of a sudden a guy runs by, and they all jump out, and they take him out. So again, these are 2 different games, but I think they can be approached in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I gotta say that's one thing about League that I do really enjoy is the team fighting that happens like at the beginning of the game. Like literally you're in your own jungle and you're just waiting for your minions to spawn, and all of a sudden 4 guys pop out of the bush and then kill all 3 of us, right? And then I get mad and think I got them. Oh, I got them. I'm coming back. And then I get killed again. And that's like, a minute into the game. It's nice to see that you could still have fun in that aspect of it, like just with being able to kind of sneak attack your people and kind of like that whole game was messed up from the first play. The whole rest of the game, like they killed all my jungle on the right side of the map, so I had no jungle to go. I had 2 deaths already where they had 2 kills, and then I had to go back, and then yeah, just it literally ruined my character's progression for the entire game within the first minute and a half of the game. So I thought that was it's pretty neat how they can do that. Another thing that I really like with League now in this season is the mythic items. I think they're really cool, and I think it's really awesome, especially for like yet again newer players that are fresh to MOBAs. The fact that there's not a lot of clicking on items anymore. They took a lot of the on use abilities away from the items and just made the item itself better. So that basically just makes it easier, and you can just literally just be paying more attention to what's going on around you, what's going on in the jungle, what's going on in the lanes. Like it just makes it so that you can pay more attention to what's happening around you rather than just focusing on your character alone.
I want to be plugged into the matrix. I want to have 47 buttons and looking at my map and taking a sip from my Red Bull. I want to do it all. I want to do it all at the same time. That's why I think that Dota 2, again, how I've stated before, it really rewards the player to, have that high skill cap and a lot of the creep manipulation as well. You can stack creeps. You can just be a support stacking creeps the whole game, and then your carry comes in, takes all these stack creeps, comes back out of the game 10 levels higher than everyone else, and just bodies the whole game. There's a lot of really interesting micro based that actually translate into the macro of the game. Whereas I feel like League does, again, really cater to it's just a slugfest. You really get to shoot out a lot of abilities and poke with them, and it's not really so much auto hitting. Whereas in Dota, I feel like your position is much more much more polarizing. And I feel like if you make mistakes in Dota, even very tiny mistakes such as movement and positioning, it can really determine how bad the game goes. And I feel like League is a little bit more forgiving in that regard. You might, throw a spell out and miss, and it's not that big of a deal. But in high level competitive Dota, missing a crucial ability or an ultimate can actually just lose you the game. Like you now just lost, especially when you get into those, hour 20 games where the smallest, tiniest mistake now just costs you the game. No one has their buybacks. No one has a way of coming back. And now it's a 5v4 and everyone has like 6 items of the highest level. I think that those are the games that we all really live for, is those big nail biting games. I feel like in the meta right now with Dota, there's not a lot of that. You either get shit stomped and then you play the next game, or it's a complete walk and you go 20-2. Like there's no, I feel like, I don't know if it's the meta or just like how the game has kind of evolved, but I feel like Dota 2, like there's maybe 1 out of every like 10 or 15 games, you get a really good game where you're like, wow, I don't even mind that I lost that one. That was just a fun game. Whereas I feel like in League because it's very heavy on team fights and just, the combat in general, you're always kind of taking away a little bit of fun that way because, or taking away a little bit of fun in the sense that like you're getting fun out of that game no matter what when you leave the game, because it just feels like, we lost the game, but there were a lot of kind of fun team fights and lots of fun communication, especially if you're in Discord or whatever.
I would have to disagree with you there, although I think in just in normal games and low elo, there's lots of team fighting. It's just perma, just ARAM running it down mid lane and just fighting over and over again. But once you get into the higher elos, it really comes down to being able to manage your wave, especially in the side lanes. If you're not managing your wave correctly, then you're going to miss out on a lot of CS, because if you overextend past the middle point, the jungler can come and gank you, and that can really end your laning phase and just lose you the game, especially in pro play where, team fights are rarely happening. Team fights only happen maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole game, and they can really turn the tide. And I think yeah, I just think Dota and League share that similarity where in the lower elos, you have a lot of team fighting, a lot of people leaving their lane to kind of just go run around, and I think once you get into the higher elo, the macro definitely becomes a lot more important.
It's crazy that you mentioned that too, because it's actually the opposite in competitive Dota 2. At the start of
Oh,
the game, you'll see people roll as a 5 ball, a murder ball. They're all running through the jungle together. They're smoking, which is an item that makes your whole team go stealth unless you
mhm.
get in with a range of them. So at the start of competitive Dota 2, it's so different than a pub game, and I think that I'm sure people could say that that's the same with League. But
Oh
as
yeah,
someone who is a veteran Dota player, watching a professional game is looks it's like watching a different game. The way they move, the way they are, someone's trying to dive a tower, all of a sudden you see 4 people teleport to that same tower to like save their buddy. Like it's very you can tell it's a professionally played game, and it's very stunning to see some of the plays they come up with. But like I say, the reason why I'll rebuttal with that disagreement is because of the simple fact that in League there's no denying of creep. In League there's very little as far as the manipulation of the minions or the creep. In Dota you can do it so that the creep never come to the wave ever. Like you can
you
literally
can do
pull
that
them.
in League too. You can freeze your wave under your tower so that if your jungler's hovering, the enemy laner can never approach you, or else they'll just
Right,
die.
right. But I would say it's even more complex in Dota 2, because you actually, like, they've recently implemented, like, they know it's a part of the game so heavily that they've recently implemented, if you stack a lane and pull it, it'll give your support bonus gold. You hear a cha-ching and you just made more money because you did that stack and pull.
Oh,
And I think that the reason why I think that the manipulation of the map is much more mechanic heavy than in League, is because you can actually affect the map in League. It seems like in Dota you can cut trees down, you can route into a secret tree route, that like the map seems a lot more vibrant, and there's a lot of really cool secret little areas you can hide in, whereas with League there's not a lot of that. There's bushes that can hide your team, but other than that, you know where the you know where people are coming from. In Dota 2, if you're new, people can come from behind a tree with 3 people out of smoke, and you just are like, well, this game's stupid, I didn't even realize that was possible. It's like, yeah, it goes back to the unrelenting fury that a new Dota player can experience.
oh yeah, and one thing you mentioned is those early game skirmishes in Dota 2. That's definitely something that's also apparent in professional play in League. There's always going to be a level 1 skirmish. Every single game, someone's trying to get vision or try and pick up a kill for their team. They're always invading each other's junglers, and it really kind of comes down to who has more CC in League. If you have a comp with a lot of CC, you have a character with a hook, someone who can and then you have a Pantheon who can jump in and CC. Um, it really comes down to that, and I think, um, yeah, I think early game skirmishes are definitely something that are really important, and just pro play in general. Players really, it's really becomes a spectacle in a way, watching pro players play, and just how they do everything perfectly. Basically, it's really interesting to see that. Something you mentioned is you'll see people dive a tower and then you'll have teleports in. That's definitely the case in League as well, where tower diving is I know tower diving is a lot easier in Dota, but as well in League and professional play, that you'll see a ton of tower diving. If people know what they're doing, tower diving can become an essential kind of thing to do to turn the tides of a game.
I think that that's important too. I think that that's why the esports scene in general is just like so popular now more so than ever is because it is a spectacle when you see these professional players pulling out these like incredibly skill driven performances. So like it is like watching a sport. Like you'll see someone do a very high technical kind of like goal in hockey or whatever. I feel like the esports, I celebrate the fact that esports are now like it feels like a real thing. You'll have like the international, which is Dota 2's biggest tournament of all time, pumping out double-digit million grand prizes to these teams.
Yeah, 25.8 million for that's bigger than
I,
any esports
I think
prize in
I think the
history.
last one was even more than that. I can't even remember, but the way they even fund it is kind of interesting too. I don't know. I can't remember the last time they introduced an interesting one, but they would release these things called compendiums, where it's like you'd buy them for $25 or sometimes 45, depending on what type of compendium you're getting. But you get a lot of really cool goodies and a lot of really cool, interesting ways of getting like cosmetics and that sort of thing. But proceeds from the compendiums go to the prize pool. And I think a lot of people love to see that they were supporting the prize pool. And I think that obviously the natural progression of this conversation, I think we should really be definitely talking about the esports in general. It's really I know that my girlfriend absolutely loves the international. She's been a diehard fan of Dota ever since she saw me playing it. She'd seen me play League, but I don't think it was really for her. And then when she saw me playing Dota, she was kind of like, "Ooh, this is kind of like League, but it just feels a little bit different." She got right into it, fell in love with the characters, and she got really heavy into the esports scene. She's cheering on her favorite teams, and seeing who's ahead in the bracket and that sort of thing. So it's really fun to see her get engaged with that sort of thing too. I think that the esports, I'm very happy. I've just been waiting for something like this to happen. I feel like a person who, a hillbilly who's been, or sorry, a hippie rather, who's been smoking weed for years and years, to finally see it legalized. I'm just so glad to see that esports is now a common occurrence and something that a lot of people are passionate about. The stadiums are full. The air is electric when you see a lot of this stuff. I'm not sure how much competitive esports you guys watch, but I know that especially for the Dota 2 one, there's nothing more hype than seeing this crazy play, and then the announcers will say a quote, and then in Dota 2, a lot of the time they'll take that excerpt of the quote and now you can use it as a taunt. So next level play, like one of the announcers will say that. Now you can spam that in the chat wheel. I've always thought that was really fun, and it really just goes to show the difference between, I think, Valve and Riot in general, just as companies. I feel like, and I could be completely out to lunch on this one, but I feel like Valve has been very just, they know that they're very, they understand that the competitive scene is huge and that there's money to be made. And Gaben's in there with the memes and that sort of thing. I think Valve, for the most part, is super supportive of Dota and the community. And they just kind of leave us alone. Even when there's controversy within the community, Valve doesn't really step in that much and get too crazy about it. Whereas I feel like Riot is very PC. Riot is very heavily involved with, the conduct of their players and the conduct of the community. They have no problem dropping perma bans on people that they deem toxic, that sort of thing. I feel like they really overstep their reach as far as just what a company should be doing. But that's just my opinion. I something I thought was really interesting too. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the legal restraints are as far as that in Dota, but I know that in League, let's say for example, you buy a skin, you don't own that skin. They say that you own the ability to like equip it, but you didn't buy anything. Because if you get your account banned and then you try to say, well, wait a minute, I bought a bunch of skins, my account's worth hundreds of dollars, they say nope, you signed on the dotted line, you basically agreed to the terms and service that basically say that you don't own these skins, you own access to use them sometimes, which I always thought was kind of like a chicken shit move that Riot really implemented there. I feel like if I buy an item, I own it. Much the same in Dota 2. When I buy a cosmetic, I can now sell it on the market if I get it for a low price and I realize it's about to explode. There's been instances like that where people have sold items that they bought for like $9 for thousands of dollars. So I feel like Riot and Valve approach their games very differently. But I think that they are making a lot of good decisions, especially in the esports scene. That's all I care about. All I care about is, seeing these games being played on the big stage. at a certain point, the only place you could really see competitive gaming on the big screen was MLG. And that goes to show how much of an old fart I am. It seems just kind of hand in hand now with competitive games like Fortnite and that sort of thing, and PUBG and all these other games that come to the forefront. It wasn't like that when we were growing up, me and Dallas. So it's really nice
No.
to see that it's really become this grandiose event.
You were the person though that I'd always go to when it comes to like the esports scene and stuff like that. Like I remember you having it on YouTube and like or you ordering a pizza and literally sitting there for 4 hours watching all these matches of Dota and stuff like that. Whereas like without you, I don't know if I would have ever even got into that scene, right? But they're even doing it with WoW and they're doing it with obviously with League and obviously PUBG, Fortnite, blah blah blah. There's just so many avenues now, and it's really helping the streaming community in general too. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money in gaming now. Like that, like man, people would laugh you out of your socks back in the day if you would have said, "Oh, I'm gonna be a professional gamer." Like when me and Catlin were growing up, like 12, 13, if we would have said that, you would have got laughed at. Like, okay. But nowadays there's like millions and millions and millions of dollars in it, like for top level high tier gaming, depending on the platform too and what system and stuff like that. But I mean, there's just so many avenues of making money in general today, whether it's from streaming, whether it's from competitive gaming, whether it's from, Patreon, PayPal, like there's just tons of avenues now that you could go down. Whereas back in the day, there was none of those, right? Like Twitch wasn't even a thing when we were growing up, and now it's one of the biggest platforms in the world.
Well, it's little subtle touches too. I think this is not like it's a small thing in general, but when I see, like, for example, at the international evil geniuses or whatever team, Alliance or even Navi come out with their jerseys and the aesthetic of their team name. I love that, and I love the fact that they're being taken seriously as these competitors. Because, like, let's face it, a lot of people don't have the avenues to compete in, say, the NFL or a lot of these high demanding physical things where you basically have to be a juice monster, train for years and years to get your body to that level, and then compete. A lot of people don't have that avenue. Some people are born essentially a Tootsie Pop, where they're a skeleton with a giant head. They're never going to play football. But now they have an avenue where they can compete. And I think that we've obviously touched that in the Smash community, where you get these super high level plays of competitive technicality. But it's nice to see that people can now compete, in these games that, like you say, when we were 13 and we wanted to say, "Hey, I'm going to be a professional video game player," it's like, "Oh, okay,
Good
like
luck.
that's a good luck." Yeah.
Um, yeah, so basically for this, we're just gonna say, Dota and League, they're both amazing games. So don't take anything too critical, especially people that are huge fans of either one. We both have our likes and dislikes with everything. And I don't think people should just take it with a grain of salt, really, because we do think they're great games and there's definitely perks to each of them. So we don't want to, like, especially for me, like I feel like I've been talking a lot of positives about League and there's some negatives about Dota, but I just don't think that that's how the game actually works. Like there's huge reasons why Dota is so popular, and the better player, honestly, I would say there's more of a skill difference between high level Dota and high level League, to be honest. Maybe Carter will disagree, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, there's definitely positives to both games, and I know I mostly talked about the league side, but that's mainly just because I don't have that much experience in Dota 2. For the games that I have played, I know the game we played yesterday where I went Dragon Knight and kind of just stomped everyone. That felt really good, and I enjoyed it. But for the most part, League just feels more like home to me in a way. It feels like I just feel more comfortable in that game. And I think, maybe playing a lot of Dota games would definitely, bring me a similar feeling in that aspect. But yeah, no, I agree that both games really have their own advantages and disadvantages. I know a lot of the cosmetics Kat mentioned, you can use them as if they're stocks. You can sink money into something and then watch the price inflate and then sell it. And I think that was one aspect that CS:GO also had to it, and I really enjoyed that aspect. And yeah, I think both games are really good in general.
So for me, the thing is too is unlike these two, which isn't an elitist thing at all, but it's just the simple fact of the matter. I've played a lot of League and I've played a lot of Dota 2. I've also played to a certain degree, somewhat a large amount of Dota 1, but I think I can make a very good opinion based on what I think with the pros and cons, just because I've played a lot of both. And again, I agree with both of them. I think that both of these games are phenomenal. I'm just a big fan of MOBAs in general. I think what I've discovered with League is League is a much more you can kind of just jump in and have fun. I like the idea of the mastery system, how it doesn't really affect the game too much. I mean, some would say like if you're min maxing, it affects it a lot. But I like how you can have the custom tree even before you pick your hero. So I really enjoyed that. I think that it's really fun to be able to just throw spells all you want at each other and not really affect your mana pool that much. So it doesn't feel as calculated. I know, obviously, we're not talking professional. We're just simply talking pub games, because no one in this chat right now is a professional in any of these games by any means. But just from what I've discovered, I feel like League is a more kind of a really rock'em sock'em robots kind of. You're fighting a lot and you're just using a lot of spells and there's a lot of flavor and interesting. The heroes feel very different from the next one, and a lot of edgelords come into the fray, but that's fine. A lot of people like that, like XX Shadow X Racer X. So shout out to him and all the different Kale skins that he's bought. But again, I just think that League is you can pick it up and play. It kind of feels like almost like Smash Bros to me in that sense. Whereas Dota, when I get invested in a Dota game, like there are times where like I lose a Dota game that I was very close and it ruins my night. I feel like it's sometimes it ruins my life. Sometimes I wish I never found this game, sort of thing. There'll be times where I'm really very heavily invested in Dota. So much that I see the glaring flaws with the game. I personally, it's been nice to kind of play League with Dallas and Carter and just take a break from Dota, because it doesn't feel so serious and you can kind of just go in there and have some fun. But I feel with me, Dota with me is a love-hate. There's been times where I've uninstalled it. I said I want to do something else. This is a waste of my time. I hate this game. I wish I could burn in a fire. And then eventually I always come back and I'm buying cosmetics. So it's really one of those things where it's a love-hate. I think with Dota, especially with some of the decisions they've made down the line, it's unfortunate to see the direction that they're taking the game in. And it hurts, because it is a game that I really love and I've played a lot. And with League, I don't really feel like the changes kind of go unseen, because I haven't played every single season or league or whatever. But I think they're both fine games. I think that MOBAs are great. And what's really important to make the distinction is they're not HOTS. That's the big one. It's not Heroes of the Storm, So I think we can all appreciate that at the end of the day, Dota and League are perfectly fine games. I think Han and Smite are great too in their own regard, even though I've played very, very small amounts of those games too. But Heroes of the Storm is dog shit. I think that people just need to realize that Blizzard is probably one of the dumbest companies on the planet.
Whoa, easy.
In this regard.
I love Blizzard. That's my thing,
let's just be realistic. They had Dota 2 or even Dota in front of their face for years. For years. It was in a game, one of their mod in Warcraft 3, and then they decide to wait and sit and not do a game about Dota for the longest time, even though they could have easily been like, oh, we're going to just make Dota, and then actually make the game. Yeah. They waited until Han came out, League came out, Dota 2 came out, then they came out with the Heroes of the Storm, and they're like, oh, let's add a fun mechanic. There's no gold. Like, okay, Blizzard. Like, I mean, again, there's a lot of... this isn't the Blizzard episode, clearly. I think back in the day, Blizzard was the top-notch heavy hitters of the world. If Blizzard released a game, you bought it. And these are some of the best games in the world. Now we have Hearthstone. We have a lot of games like Shadowlands.
Shadowlands is a great game. If I had more time, I'd play it.
But anyway, we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, 100%. We got lots of shitting on Blizzard we can do, and that's even from a person who's played Blizzard games for 20 years.
I'm someone who's played a lot of Blizzard games too, so it's not like I'm just jumping on and shitting on the Blizzard boat.
Nope. But anyway, guys, we appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us on our channels. There's tons of other stuff we're going to be talking about in this podcast. And yeah, the one thing I will say just to wrap this up is MOBAs for us. It's awesome as far as three brothers just to be able to jump into a game and have a lot of fun. And I had a blast playing Dota with Katlin and Carter. Don't get me wrong. There's some frustration in it when you're losing and getting stomped. But honestly, MOBAs are one of the things that can really, we can like just really communicate well with each other and just have a lot of fun with it. So I think that's MOBAs really just bring us together as a gaming family, and we really love it. So anyway, guys, follow our social media in the link below. Like I said, we're going to be releasing a lot more content. It's probably going to be 2 a week starting here soon. We're just trying to get ahead of the 8 ball here. And yeah, we just appreciate all the love and support we've getting from everyone, and just keep watching our videos. We greatly appreciate it. So anyway, have a nice day from the three brothers.
Later.
Peace.
Bye.